introductions and all. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm Stephen Miller. I'm co-PI for the National Cyber Security Training Education Center, and always kind of moderate the member meetings. So you can go to the next slide. So today we have Dr. Philip Krager from Emory-Riddler Aeronautics University, and he's a professor of cybersecurity in the Department of Security Studies and International Affairs at Emory-Riddler Aeronautics University in Daytona Beach, Florida. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Philip, and go ahead, Philip.
Okay, let me share my screen. Share. Here you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
You can see.
Okay, and I think I'm going to try to mute my face. There we go, so you can pay attention to me. So what I'm going to talk about today is something that I've been doing for the last 3 years, which is putting together videos on cybersecurity for the NCyTE YouTube channel. So we'll walk you through that today. And just so you're aware that NCyTE Center and this material is based upon work supported by our National Science Foundation under that grant that you see there. So no opinions or findings or conclusions expressed or should be have anything to do with the views of the National Science Foundation. So it's going to be a fairly short introduction, about maybe 20 minutes, but I'm going to introduce you to the YouTube channel and talk about why we created the channel, and also an overview of the categories of resources, because there's multiple, not only multiple resources, but also multiple categories of resources for different students or for teachers, depending upon the audience, and an overview of the topics that we have on there thus far. And we have about 50 videos that I've created by myself on the NCyTE YouTube channel. And then we'll talk last about the NCyTE material that's on NCyTE.net, and also another site called Clark.Center, which is full of wonderful resources that you could use for your courses, whether you have high school students or community college students. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of cybersecurity related modules on Clark.Center. And then we'll have a little time for questions. So this is what the NCyTE Center's YouTube channel looks like. And so you have to, maybe you ask yourself, why did we create this channel? And the reason is I've been teaching at the university level for 28 years, and I've been teaching cyber for since 1999. So I've been doing this for a while. And at one point in time when I was putting together resources for teaching, there really wasn't a whole lot. It's nothing compared to what we have now, but still there were things that I saw that I would like to be able to present to my students, but that would require me to go out and do additional work and research over and above what I already knew or whatever was in the book. And so that was really the problem, is that instructors can have a difficult time simply covering the core or having the resources to cover the core, because there's always something that's going to come up that maybe you don't know about, or you don't have, at your hand the resources. So this is why the YouTube channel was created, is to provide students and educators with ancillary resources that may not be covered in a course or a textbook. And by the way, a lot of these things that I've covered in these YouTube videos, I didn't know anything about until I went and did all my research. And so, I mean, that's a key illustrator right there, is that I can teach the core cybersecurity courses, but there was always some things that maybe I didn't know about. So it'd be great to be able to point your instructors or to your students to these resources so they can go out and do some research on their own and use that in their courses. So the primary target audiences based upon our NSF funding are high school or primarily community college students that enrolled in IT or cybersecurity programs or courses. And one thing that I came up with from teaching my students was prospective students, is that what we're trying to do is to build a pipeline of students. Well, how do you do that? Well, NSF and then a lot of universities are coming up with the and even the CAE, Center for Academic Excellence, is that we should be promoting cybersecurity, not just in the cybersecurity courses, but in other courses as well. Is that cybersecurity comes into business, it comes into aeronautics, it comes into lots of different things. So one of the ways to get those prospective students who may not be in a cyber or an IT program interested is to incite them with these videos that I've created, and we'll talk about a little later on. Now, if you think about it, if I'm talking about multiple audiences, that suggests different types of videos because I'm trying to speak to my audience, and I'll explain all that shortly. So this is the deal right here, is that the professors like me, like all of you online, we're really good at teaching the core. We have our IT and we have our cyber. We're very good at it. We have our resources, but the way that I've seen IT and cyber taught, it's almost taught within a within the realm of an office building. Is that we're going to be working in an office building, but actually, if we think about the information communication technologies, where they're being used everywhere, not just in offices or in homes or buildings. For example, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University has to do with the National Airspace System. We work with all these fancy planes and drones. And so that's one of a series of videos I created showing how the National Airspace System is heavily dependent on information communication technologies. There's also maritime as well. Whether you know it or not, ships are just really, the modern ones are floating computers. Cyber supply chain risk management is another area that really covers all of cyber. It's actually much wider than just looking at computers and networks, but now you start talking about people working together in foreign companies, and they're providing chips and they're providing software. How does that mix fit in when the Department of Defense is buying these resources and then putting them out to the field? We have advanced manufacturing as well. That's that's combining not only operational technologies, SCADA systems, but also information technology. And these things are being hooked up onto the internet. We have communications, which is one of the critical infrastructure sectors. That's one of the basic ones that kind of underlies a lot of the other critical infrastructure sectors. And that also includes the energy sector as well. And so everything you see on the screen, including some others, are critical infrastructure that also, well, I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, so that covers critical infrastructure, at least part of the videos I'm talking about. But also, when I'm thinking about prospective students, there's a series called Securing Your Digital Life, which is essentially a series of videos where I take the technology that students use in their everyday lives, and I talk about how there are cyber threats and cyber attacks on that technology, and how students should be concerned about that and be prepared for these types of threats and attacks. And finally, there's interviews, and I'll kind of explain that a little later. These are essentially students that I've taught previously that have gone on to become successful. And so I'm interviewing them so students can see that they're not talking to a fancy professor with a PhD. They're watching somebody who's out of school just a few years, but have become successful. So I think it makes it a little more meaningful to look at these younger people and how they handle school and how they handle the transition to work. And so those are the two that are kind of a little different from the other series that I'll talk about here shortly. So this is what most students think that they will be doing. They're going to be working in an office setting, and they'll walk down to the server room, or they'll walk down to where an employee is having an issue. But cyber is really a lot more than that. If they're interested in aviation, there's cyber in aviation. There's cyber in the maritime system. There's cyber in advanced manufacturing. There's cyber in energy and communications. There's 16 critical infrastructure sectors that have been identified by CISA and Department of Homeland Security. All of those have a cyber component to them. And so the world really should be the student's oyster, and they should be able to think outside of the box when it comes to looking for jobs. It's not just going to necessarily be in an office or a building. So the current critical infrastructure series that I've created that go back 3 years include the National Airspace System, the Maritime Transportation System, small unmanned aircraft systems, which is essentially talking about drones, cyber supply chain risk management, fintech, that's financial technology, so the banks and online payment systems, the communication sector, the energy sector, which I will finish up the second video of that. And I've got one on artificial intelligence, which was kind of pushed by the National Science Foundation because artificial intelligence is being used a lot more in industry and also in the critical infrastructure sectors. So how are these video series structured? Well, I tried to keep them down to 20 or 30 minutes. And the reason is because if you take the most important information out of an hour-long class or an hour-and-a-half class, you can actually chunk that down into something much smaller, 20 or 30 minutes. Another important thing is once the students start watching the video, you don't want to bore them. You want to keep them interested. So what I tried to do is to keep these videos short enough so that they'll watch the entire thing. So again, each of those critical infrastructure sector series is again a series of videos. So the first video is usually fairly non-technical. It's a non-technical introduction to the topic. It explores information on information communication technologies and how they're involved, and why cybersecurity is critical in that critical infrastructure. So it should be able to be understandable by a general audience. Now, the second series is, I'm assuming, is that the students are probably in an IT program or course or in a cyber program or course. So it assumes some technical knowledge, but it introduces higher level cybersecurity topics. It discusses threats, attacks, and mitigation strategies. So the last few videos, the last year, I've tried to keep it to 2 videos. Now, the earlier videos, I kind of went hog wild and I did a third video. And so I really went probably too far in depth, but still there's a lot of really good information, but they really assume these last videos, some really good knowledge of cybersecurity. So how do we get new students into our programs? That is, how do we incite prospective students? We want to build that cybersecurity pipeline. And the way I did this was I created this series called Securing Your Digital Life. And the reason I did that was that I used to teach a class called CYB 155, which was a very general class for students coming in that didn't have any cybersecurity knowledge, and they could be from any program whatsoever at Embry-Riddle. And what I found is I would start the day by talking about things in the news, things that had happened that very morning, cyber threats or cyber attacks, but I would also talk about the technology that they use. And we would have some very spirited discussions from these people who were not in an IT or cybersecurity program, but they were very interested in it. And I found out that that class was a reason that I saw a lot of growth in our cybersecurity minor, is because of my speaking to my students at a level where they would understand. It wouldn't be overwhelming, but also it would tie it to what they're actually involved with in their everyday life. So these videos cover technology that students use, why cybersecurity is important, and how to protect yourself. Now, these are much shorter, 10 to 20 minutes, because they're very general overviews, and I don't want to bore the students. It assumes no knowledge of cybersecurity, and that can be useful in any class. I'm in a security studies and international affairs program, and a lot of my videos, and well, let me go back. Most of the classes have nothing to do with cyber. They're homeland security videos, global conflict studies. A lot of my videos are used in these classes because these students are not cyber, but the professors do want to show the students why cyber is important. And this shows some of the videos under this rubric. I can't read the top one. Password managers, what are firewalls, what is encryption, why are backups important? And then I have a mini series of what is social engineering, protecting yourself against social engineering, and there's one missing in there, the second one. And finally, virtual private networks. So those are all very, very general, very high level explanations of those topics. Something I came out with last year was thinking about the types of cyber attacks that may happen. So I started looking at the top 10 cyber attacks according to Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3 annual report. And so in this, I explained what ransomware is, what business email compromise is, and also software update, supply chain attacks, and SolarWinds. That's easy for me to say. But again, these are shorter videos and don't really require some background knowledge. And then we have the student to cyber professional videos. So these are essentially 3 of my former students who have become successful in like 3 to 4 years after school. They're now cybersecurity professionals. There's one in fintech who's a female. She's awesome. I have a guy who does incident response work. That video had to be edited because he was talking about some very sensitive information, because he actually works with a company that works with ransomware, and he goes out onto the dark web and will negotiate payments for ransomware. So he's got some great stories, but we couldn't share all those, unfortunately. And then I have the senior cybersecurity engineer for a large hospital somewhere in the United States. So that gives a great flavor. Very different subject matters, all have to deal with cybersecurity, but they're different flavors for different jobs of cybersecurity. So the kinds of things I asked them is, what do you do on the job every day? What prepared you for the job from your cybersecurity courses or programs? What was it like going through your cybersecurity program? What was the most important thing that you learned that's relevant to your job? And what would you have done differently? And there's other questions as well. But hopefully students will see that, and they will see that it will get them excited to see, wow, here's somebody that's gone through a cyber program. I can do the same. I can be successful. There's one last one. How does what you learned apply to your job? Okay, let me turn over. So that's the YouTube channel. Let me turn over to, let me see if this is sharing properly. Are we seeing NCyTE.net? Stephen? Oh, everybody's.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this is NCyTE.net. This is the website for the National Cybersecurity Training Education Center, and it is packed with very useful information, not only for students, but for professors as well. If you're not a member of NCyTE, I would strongly encourage you to do that, because it gains you access to various things that otherwise that wouldn't be available. So let's look at the faculty resources right here. And what we'll see is that there's tons of information that can be used for your courses. So here's the cybersecurity curriculum right here. I just reviewed one of the online textbooks, which is for critical infrastructure. It's actually an entire course. And so if you looking at adding a critical infrastructure cybersecurity course to your program, it's already been developed, and it's packed with activities. It has objectives. It's just like any textbook that you would buy online, and the students would pay what, $120 or $250 for, but it's absolutely free on the NCyTE Center website. References and reports, we have webinars and recordings, and I'm guessing this is going to push us back to YouTube. But resources all for the academic centers of excellence as well here. So again, I don't have time to go through all this. It would take me a day to do this, but I would strongly encourage you to get on here and just go through the resources, because there's so many resources that NCyTE has created. And so there's no reason to go and reinvent the wheel. And 20 years ago, when I was having to create my own curriculum, this didn't exist. And I wish it had existed, because it would have saved me a lot of time. Now, the last resource I want to talk about is Clark Center. And Clark Center is a website that holds academic modules for all different kinds of things. And when you go to clark.center, and that's the URL, clark.center, you'll see this. So notice it says search and download 895 free learning objectives. So if we type in cybersecurity and NCyTE and search on there, it comes up with all the different modules you'll see right here. And so a lot of these are for high school and others are for community college students, but you'll see all the different topics here. Here's AP cybersecurity concepts, cybersecurity ethics, principles, and you'll see, I don't know how many there are, but I mean, it would take you a few minutes to go through here. But the great thing about this is that these have been created by people who have the skills and the knowledge. They understand cybersecurity. They're academicians. They've created these. Everything on Clark Center is in a standardized format, which means that if you plug and play with 5 or 6 different modules, everyone looks the same. So it's not very confusing, which might occur if you're taking from various resources. So this is a very useful site. Here's blockchain technology, applied standards, multidisciplinary risk management for cybersecurity. And these are just the ones. This is 5 pages just from NCyTE. Oops, there's actually more than that. 7. It goes down to 7, 8, 9. Okay, so obviously, oh, I see what we're doing. So now we're getting into modules from other schools, but suffice to say that NCyTE has a lot of materials on here, but also you'll see that there's cybersecurity modules from a lot of other schools. And so, so that ends the presentation. Essentially what I wanted to show you was that you have the YouTube channel, is that there's resources out there that you can draw from, that if you don't know anything about drone cybersecurity or cyber supply chain risk management, is you can point your students to these resources. Just this morning, I looked at how many views I had for some of these already, and the highest one was for my one of my drone cybersecurity videos, which had 4,700 views, and then the Maritime had thousands and thousands in the National Airspace System. So a lot of people are using these resources. So I would suggest that you go out and at least, check it out, watch 1 or 2 of the videos, see if it would be useful for your classes, and also make sure that you go to NCyTE.net and look at those resources as well. If you're putting together a class and you need modules, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And also go and visit clark.center as well and see all the different modules they have for cybersecurity that you could use for your classes. And that's it. Questions?
Any questions?
Well, I have a question, I guess for the audience. Is that, what topics would you be interested in video, or do you use video for your instruction now?
Okay, so let me say one thing. For the near future, we're going to be looking at the 16 cybersecurity critical infrastructure sectors. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of laid out in front, although if you want to mention something, you can. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how many people do use videos or that use alternate sources. So maybe the book doesn't cover something, so you bring something in from the outside, whether it's a video or not.
Yeah, I would think that quite a few faculty would bring in other resources. I know a lot of times for more up-to-date information, I may find a video or something on YouTube and add that in a discussion feedback on or something like that in Canvas or Blackboard or whatnot. So
yeah,
one of the so you're concentrated on the critical infrastructure. Are there plans or is there a schedule for like what those topics might be? Like one of the areas that I have some interest in is in the medical healthcare and medical. And I don't know, is that something on the radar right now for a video, or is that coming down later?
Well, so NCyTE is It's looking, and by the way, everybody listen, because it could be a job for you. It's looking for somebody to update a course in healthcare cybersecurity. This would be a paid gig, but it needs to be somebody who kind of understands healthcare cybersecurity and the nuances within the healthcare. But yes, so that would be a first thing that we're going to do, is actually build out that course, and then probably sometime later a video. The next one's going to be emergency management. After this, next one's energy, and then the next subject is going to be emergency management. I can't see chats.
See, is there,
Oh, there they
here's
are.
a question. Is there an area on emerging technologies, broad or narrow?
No, I mean, there's not one yet, but that's something. Oh, well, actually, I don't know if this is emerging. Ended up talking about IoT a lot. Because that's where a lot of these little things, the new technologies that we're plugging into the network. So I talk a little bit about that, because that's one of the threat vectors for almost every critical infrastructure is IoT, is somebody plugging something into the network that shouldn't be plugged in. So I talk about that in artificial intelligence. There are 2 videos on that. That's something that the NSF really wanted me to talk about. So I talked about it. That and machine learning.
I don't see any other questions right now in the.
Is there an area of
Oh, there you
criminal
go.
science studies where technology is used to track criminal activities? Yeah, that's funny. That's not something that I would do a video on, but yeah, there's I don't know where the guy was, and interestingly, I saw a TV program, and I think it was Forensics Files. You guys should watch Forensics Files, because occasionally you talk about cyber forensics. But one of the things that somebody has done is that he studied where certain crimes occur, and he built a database and kind of a mapping program, so that if you put in all the, this had to do with rape. So the show did. So all these women were being raped, and so they put it into the program, and it would actually show you visually through some kind of artificial intelligence the likelihood of where this person lived, and and he was right on the ball. It was like within a block. And so I thought that was interesting, but it's not something I don't think that we would cover in one of our videos. Okay, I put this on don't beep, and it beeped anyway.
Any other question? Okay, we have another chat. You've mentioned that NSF wanted you to look at AI. Can you expand on their interest?
No, not really. They came back when we were putting through this center grant. And one of the first things they said was continue doing the YouTube stuff. And then they mentioned cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So I jumped on it and I created them. And I think that's because AI is really showing up in a lot of places, and it's growing. My minor was in artificial intelligence from the University of South Florida. I had an interest back in the 80s. And so in the late 80s and early 90s, I actually did some minor AI. And at that time, the kind of the buzz was just like blockchain is now. If we have a problem, you know what the answer is? It's blockchain. Well, that's not right. You know, you use it's a tool and you use it for the purpose. Back in the 90s and in the late 80s, it was an artificial neural networks. And yep, that's going to solve all our problems. Well, it really didn't. And so, but now this is like 30 years later, 35 years later, and now AI is actually coming to a point where everybody thought it would be in the early 90s. And so I think that's why they wanted to look at that is because AI is being used in all of these other critical infrastructure sectors. And so there's two ways of looking at it. Is one is using artificial intelligence to learn about cyber threats and cyber attacks and to protect against them. And then, geez, I forgot what the other thing was. I had two things. I can't remember. If I remember it, I'll let you know.
Maybe, well, that's true. I guess that would be tied to maybe predicting or decision support systems using artificial intelligence and capturing experiences that have happened, other occurrences and how they were solved or something like that, I guess.
Right. And so so AI could actually take millions of pieces of information, things that humans can't do, and they could see these complicated nonlinear relationships. And so a system such as this could take in all that and be more proactive in terms of defending, as opposed to what we do right now, which is primarily reactive for the most part.
There's a question here, see, from the CEH certified ethical hacker to CompTIA's CYSA cybersecurity analyst. Are there specific certificates NSA or others are encouraging early level graduates to seek out first? I can tell you from the latest sessions I've been in, I think it was at the CAE symposium, if you are CAE school, there was a discussion from the DoD about the 8071 criteria for the different certifications that are needed for certain jobs in DoD. So that's probably a direction there that's coming. I'm sure the NSA has similar, I mean, adopts those DoD. They do adopt those DoD requirements. The other thing that came out of that session was that they're looking at incorporating work roles, the nice work roles, into that 8071 set of certifications or job requirements. But I don't know. Have you got any other ideas on that?
That's the first place I look.
Yeah.
When somebody says, well, what certificates or courses should I have? I said, well, let's go look here. So first of all, what job do you want? There's entry level jobs, there's higher level jobs. So it really depends. So that's probably the best place and the safest place to look, because that's standardized for the DoD.
Yeah, I would agree. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for all the wonderful comments, people.
Yes.
Hey, when you watch these videos, when you go to the NCyTE YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good idea.
I forget to do that too when I'm watching videos. I'd like to see another one of those, and then I forget. Now I've actually gotten to the habit of subscribing when I see something, so then I'll be alerted, because I'm doing one of these a month. It's almost like writing a term paper, because these are subjects. I mean, I understand the core cybersecurity stuff and can talk about it all day long, but when you start saying, oh, the energy sector, it's like, well, I've never worked in the energy sector, so I'm going to have to do a lot of research. So I get all my sources. Sometimes I read books, I read government documents, I go to online resources. I try to get the latest resources. So something from the last 2 or 3 years, for examples and things like that. So essentially making one of those videos, it makes me a little mini expert, kind of. I mean, not really, a little more expert than I was, but it takes a while to do these.
That's good. Yeah, that's it. I think I haven't looked at the interviews, but I'm going to go out there, and I think those should be really interesting to hear from alumni and their successes.
And I wish I could tell you it. So it was weird when I was doing the interviews. There were things they would tell me off the record And then there was things, then what they would tell me on the record. So there's lots of crazy things going on in cybersecurity that are scary, that don't get published because it's a hospital or a bank or something, and they're not going to tell you what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess if you go to maybe some of these special interest groups with InfraGard, but you're not, you don't want to talk about those in some cases as well, even though that's supposed to be it's supposed to be open. But I've been to some of the SIGs that they don't want to talk about certain things, but they just tell the special interest group because they are vetted a little bit. So
Yeah.
one thing I would point out too, I know you're talking about these are for students and faculty and all that, but as we had talked about earlier before we started the session here, the industry folks can go out and look at this. I know that to kind of for awareness, and I just give the example of I sent the links to the Marine to my son, who's a captain on tankers, and he sent it around to all of his network of peers, and then also at the InfraGard, I belong to that special interest group for maritime and in Houston, and I sent it to the lead person there, and apparently she sent it out to members. So there's a lot of hits on that. They really had a good feedback on the fact that that brought more awareness to a lot of people, and the captains probably know more. Were pretty much aware. I know my son had asked me about this before you even did those videos, but when it goes all the way down to the deckhands and all that, everybody has this awareness now.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Training, education, and awareness. That's what I drill into my students, is that all it takes is one person who doesn't understand.
That's true. I have another one came up here with best vulnerability assessment tools,
Oh, I just wrote in Nessus.
Oh, okay. You did. Yeah.
That's the one I use for
Yeah.
my students. Is we started out with scanning with a Nmap. First of all, we start out with open source intelligence, and then with pinging, and then scanning a network with Nmap. And then I said, now that you know how to do it the hard way, now let's use Nessus. And so they love that. Show them how to walk before they learn to run.
That's good.
I can't remember the open source tool, OAV, OVA. I can't remember, but I used to use that as well, but it doesn't work as well as Nessus.
Was this a good point to segue over to our, upcoming events? Because some of the things that you guys are talking about, we have some workshops and membership meetings that really get in depth about training and other opportunities.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Philip.
I'm gonna mute and
go ahead, Mike. You go ahead and cover that stuff. You got a slide for that? Yeah.
Can you see the slide now?
I think Philip's going to have to stop sharing.
I have the future directions 2022 up. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
see it.
All right, so a little bit about NCyTE. So the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center. We do a number of things besides provide curriculum, YouTubes. We also are sponsoring the summit, which is happening this week. There are 12 topics. Stephen Miller, who's our facilitator and host today, has one of the topics, but 12 topics that are going to cover different areas of cybersecurity, specifically for or in support of community colleges. The result of that will be a book that we will, or a journal that, what would you say, Stephen? Is it a book, an authored
it's an authored kind of a book it's a journal type book and with all the white papers. So this session we have coming up this week or coming week, the summit will have has a invitation only to 300 different organization people. I mean, there's administrative executives from academia, mainly from the community colleges. There's government and industry dignitaries and whatnot, and some subject matter experts. And they will be we'll be doing a presentation. We have about a 40-minute presentation about the paper, the white paper that we have drafted, and it's still in draft. And what the purpose is to get feedback from these different participants based on what we present and what we have in the paper, and then finalize that paper so it can be published. And it should be interesting because this was a summit that was supposed to happen in just before COVID, and when COVID hit, or right after COVID hit, so it's been these 2 years, and I know just looking at what my white paper covered, and there's things that have changed, and so it should be interesting. On what we'll have to do is go back and probably do some updates of our in fact, I've been working on that already, but I think that's what I anticipate hearing from the audience, is that, hey, this stuff has changed. As you know, 2 years and 2 days, that things can change in cyber. So, or 2 minutes. So, so it'll be a interesting couple of days. That's all I can say. But it's going to be an opportunity, I think, to really meet with some. We're actually, I think a lot of people have potential meetings. We have some meetings set up with our senators' staff members, just to talk about cybersecurity in New Mexico. So it'll be a great opportunity.
We have people representing other NCyTE members and people across the United States who
the CMMC. I think John Sands mainly is teaching those CMMC workshops.
Yep, the CMMC is a Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification, and that's from the Department of Defense. So this is the second time that they've updated the maturity model. John Sands, we have actually, these workshops are free. If you Google this on the web, you'll find that workshops are out there, but often they're expensive. So we offer them 2-day workshops. They're free. The July one is about half full. There are over 30,000 vendors who work with the Department of Defense who have to meet the CMMC 2.0 requirement or have the certification. So if anybody in industry, or if you have students who are going into industry, this will be a great certification or a great workshop for them to be able to attend, so they have some background with the DoD and what their requirements are, so to remain in compliance. Then in August, we have the STEAM event. This is an opportunity for faculty from both cyber and non-cyber fields, including automotive technology, information technology, automation and manufacturing, and computer science, all encouraged to attend. We're going to be doing a hack car. So what is it called? Vehicle to Everything Technologies. So they're going to have a 1-day workshop, one-day workshop. It's going to be offered twice in August. I believe it's the 10th and the 14th, the first and the last day. But go out to STEAM. There are a lot of activities. It's going to be at the Mall of America. We're just offering one of the professional development workshops. It's a very big venue with a lot of exciting different events happening there. I want to remind you too about the virtual career fair. It's coming up on September 16th. Last year we had over 1,300 students attend and 50 employers. This year registration will open for students. We're hoping in the next couple of weeks. We already have 80 employers who've signed up. So we are anticipating that we're going to have a much better turnout this year. We were happy with last year's turnout. It's going to be even larger this year. So please let your students know, or please sign up to attend this. Everybody, we're inviting CAE students and alumni to this event. And then in July 22nd, our membership meeting's coming up, our next one. It's going to be about faculty development. So we offer a number of academies and workshops. We've been offering them in the past. We're going to continue to offer them. And we're really trying to broaden our reach and hit not just places that teach cybersecurity already, but some of these non-disciplines that don't teach cybersecurity. As Philip has mentioned, and as we've already gone over, cybersecurity is not just limited to one field or one area. It really requires everybody from the deckhands all the way up to the captains to really understand their role in providing cyber defense. So we're encouraging, and as you might already know, there are over, I think, what did I hear, 700,000, that seems high, maybe 70,000 jobs available.
No, 715,000 jobs according to CyberSeek.
That's what I thought.
If you go out to cyberseek.org, you can see that. So Burning Glass, working with the NICE and I guess maybe CISA, but they put this all together, and you probably all know about cyberseek.org, but that I don't remember. I think last year it was somewhere around 500. So we're losing ground as far as being able to stay up with the job openings and trying to fill those jobs. So
we're losing faculty.
And faculty as well. Yeah, that's part of it.
That was me.
Good.
I'll just say that's me. You're losing me.
Oh, so we're trying to address that in any way that we can by having these workshops. So we really encourage faculty who are already teaching cybersecurity and want to add new topics to their classroom, or faculty who are in non-cybersecurity programs and recognize that cybersecurity is important. We want to add that to our curriculum, and trying to get students who have been really good students and are interested in that, because it's a great way to give back. It's a great way to keep your cybersecurity skills honed and fresh. And we need employees, 715,000 people, as Stephen pointed out. So please attend the July 22nd one if you're interested in learning more. Some of these workshops include a stipend. Some of them are 2 days long, some of them are 4 days long, some of them are shorter. And then on August 19th, I think this came up in our one of our chat questions, but Stephen and Vincent Nestler are going to give a presentation on cybersecurity evaluation tool, CSET. Now, Vincent Nestler just had a cyber career challenge workshop, 10 weeks long, invited 24 students to attend, and they had their final presentations last week. It was really encouraging and exciting to watch the presentations. One of the things that they used in that workshop, though, was the CSET tool. And Stephen, you went to their workshop and kind of did a presentation on that. So do you want to talk about?
So the CSET tool usage was just part of that challenge, but what they wanted to do to prepare their getting their network and their systems, their enterprise system all set up and protected, they did a risk assessment of what they had there to make sure they had closed as many gaps as possible from a security perspective. And so we used the CSET tool, and of course, CSET tool, we mentioned the CMMC. You can actually add that in to the CSET tool. It's all there, and you can do a risk assessment based off the CMMC. You can do it off the critical infrastructure framework. You can use all of the NIST 800 standards are there. The other industry type for like pipeline control, those type of things. I think like nuclear, there's several different standards and frameworks that are available through the CSET tool. It was developed by the Idaho Labs and the Department of Homeland Security back around 2008. somewhere in that time frame. So we use it. We teach it in our risk assessment courses. They've also are concentrating now on this ransomware readiness risk assessment that's going to be included in the next version of that ransomware. Just go out to CISA and you'll find it. But yeah, I think it'll be a great. So we're using it actually in our internships program with our vendors. And when I say vendors, I mean our industry partners. So it's a great tool.
Thanks. And then, as we mentioned, please become a member today. We have over 350 institutions who are members, and we have literally thousands of individual members. So to become a member, your institution would be your sponsor, so to speak, and then you would be a member. Anybody at your institution then can become a member. And we have memberships for high schools, for colleges, universities, and industry. And thank you for attending today. We really appreciate you coming out and listening to Philip's presentation and hearing about all the different events that we have at NCyTE. Please subscribe, as Philip mentioned, to our YouTube channel. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And with that, I think we are wrapping up our session. Stephen, do you have any closing comments?
All I would say is just enjoy this month for the summer if you can. We're getting a heat wave here across the West. I know that. So anyway, just thanks for everyone attending, and look forward to the next month's meeting. And thank you, Philip, for your overview of the services that are available and resources for our members and for non-members as far as that goes.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And thanks for everybody for attending and the good questions.
All right, thank you. And we'll be sending out a follow-up email with all the links in here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.